Good morning, Beaumont. Doc Greene here. It's a really great day. You probably need to get your car washed today, or tomorrow. But in any case, let's get on with the news and what's happening. Of course, everyone's going to be talking about the debate, and so I'm not going to. But I do think it's interesting that Rolling Stone magazine has published a deranged rant promising an end to democracy and a shift to a dictatorship if Americans elect Donald Trump in November. The very fact that these guys are saying this stuff tells you that Donald Trump is the man that we need. Rolling Stone writer Tim Dickinson and Aswang Subasang insist that a Trump presidency will usher in death by firing squads, relentless lawfare against his political opponents, and the beginning of American tyranny. In other words, what's going on right now, only apparently it will be worse under Trump. If Trump doesn't win, let me tell you, things are going to be worse. But the unhinged article compares J.D. Vance to Benito Mussolini, Trump's immigration platform to the Japanese internments during World War II, and Trump himself to Filipino strongman Rodrigo Duterte. In the Rolling Stone scenario, half or more of this country that will vote for Trump are either crazed fiends of some sort or perhaps just gullible nitwits who understand nothing. You know, like Democrats. Something akin to Hillary Clinton's 2016 characterization of Donald Trump's voters as being a basket of deplorables. My wife actually got me that shirt. I love it. Trump has positioned himself as an avatar of collective revenge fantasy for his followers. One cannot help but wonder if the writer's opinion of their own readers is maybe not that good. Maybe they think that a string of absurd threats will scare them into voting for Cammie. Well, the basic thesis of this article, if indeed it has a thesis, is that the first Trump term was relatively benign because there were people around him to rein him in. Sort of a counterweight. But they're saying that won't be here this time. The only thing that stopped him from being a full-on dictator was other people, citing Jason Stanley, a Yale professor and author of How Fascism Works. Second Trump term would supercharge fossil fuel production, pull every lever of power within his grasp, and pursue autocratic power to satisfy his authoritarian ambition. Now, what would be wrong with supercharging fossil fuel production, I ask you? So, the article went on to say that regaining the White House by Donald Trump would put naked abuse of power at his fingertips. You know, kind of like what's going on right now. Reading between the lines, the author seems to be warning that if elected, Trump would seek to do exactly what has been going on. And that would be terrible because, well, Donald Trump, he's a solid constitutionalist, mostly. I mean, yeah, I know about the whole bump stock thing. That's a minor thing for me. But he's a fine Christian man. A lot of people don't know that, but I have seen him in church, and he goes to church to worship. He doesn't go to church to speak. In fact, most of the time when he goes to church, he is not even acknowledged as being there, and that's by his own request. But they said that strongmen like Trump denigrate the press and the judiciary as corrupt because that's their enemy. That's according to Ben Giat, who is seemingly blissfully unaware of the actual corruption of the mainstream press, of which Rolling Stone is a part. The article really seems to reveal a hysteria of the Democrats left over from the prospect of a Trump win in November, which appears, well, more likely by the day. The title of the piece says, "Worst case scenario, what if Trump wins? Oh my God." North Carolina Supreme Court ruled Monday that the state election officials have to reprint the presidential ballots and remove Robert F. Kennedy's name from those ballots. Kennedy, who initially hoped to wage a third-party bid for the White House, has decided to back Donald Trump. so many Democrats are leaving the party and moving to the Republican Party. What concerns me is that a lot of them, of course, are going to be weak Republicans, but nonetheless should tell you something. Kennedy launched a battle to have his name removed from the state where he had secured ballot access so the voters who couldn't stomach voting for the Democrat candidate, well, they would have him as an alternative. According to ABC, and we know how reliable they are, Kennedy is no longer in the ballot in 10 other states: Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Maine, Nevada, New Hampshire, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas, and South Carolina. ABC reports that though Kennedy will still be on the ballot in about 30 other states, when it comes to the swing states, only Michigan and Wisconsin have refused to allow his name to be removed. And, of course, we know they are pretty corrupt. According to NBC, North Carolina's ruling to remove Kennedy was an offset by a final ruling from the Michigan courts keeping Kennedy on the ballot. So what's going to happen is that because RFK has backed Donald Trump, this is going to expand his margin considerably. And trust me, if you see some of these party luminaries that are leaving the Democrat Party, and they seem to be doing so in large quantities, that means that a lot of Democrats are going to vote Republican this time. They may not change their affiliation, but they are going to vote Republican. And I know the fix is in. I just don't think the fix is going to be big enough this time to solve the problem. So anyway, good news for the Trump administration. Meanwhile, the Biden-Harris Department of Homeland Insecurity is releasing another $380 million to care for illegal aliens. Now, the country is pretty much broke. We're printing money like crazy, but there's no additional wealth being created. In fact, we've got more businesses going bankrupt in the United States in the past year than have gone bankrupt in the United States in the last 12 years. So these anonymous, unvetted future Democrats are going to be settled into poverty-stricken areas, which will remain so as long as they're there, and they're going to be on welfare for the rest of their lives because they don't know how to work. According to DHS, this allocation of $380 million through the Shelter and Services Program, that's known as SSP. They actually have an acronym for it, I guess. The SSP DHS directly supports communities that are providing critical support for food, shelter, clothing, acute medical care, transportation for illegal aliens recently released from DHS custody and, of course, awaiting their court proceedings sometime in the next 10 years or so. I think Donald Trump will change all of that. They're using lots of non-governmental organizations like the Catholic Charities. I don't know if there's any actual Catholics in that charity, but them. They're Marxist operations. NIAS, Open Border Group, some of them controlled by foreigners. MS-13 and Antifa control some of the shelters in New York City now. And we're giving them more government money. So you've got to ask yourself, at what point in time do we just say, enough of this mess? I've got to go there. In 1776, we were having a lot of problems with the King of England. And he wasn't treating us well. And he was sucking a lot of our tax dollars away from us. And we decided it was time to do something about it. And that's what we did. So I just have to ask you the question. How long are you willing to put up with this? I am concerned that Texans, by and large, like most Americans, will accept almost any amount of indignity so long as they have food on the table and some sort of entertainment. That could be Netflix. Of course, I dropped my Netflix account when they gave the $8 million to Kamala. But good news is they ended up losing several billion dollars over that little stunt. But they don't care because money means nothing to these people. But what about you? Where do you stand in all of this? We like to talk about our Second Amendment rights. The Second Amendment the right of the people to keep and bear arms. It's constantly under attack from these people. They never seem to give up. What are they worried about? Well, I think what they're worried about is that maybe some Americans will reach the point where just having food on the table and a little entertainment is no longer enough. They might look around them and say, I have children, I have grandchildren, and why am I giving all of this money to these illegal aliens that come here not to add anything to my life, but to take from my life? And then we do something about it. The result of what happens in the next few months is very much going to be up to you. But I want to encourage you to consider, what are you willing to do to preserve what we used to call a representative constitutional republic? According to Maxine Waters, just because all these Haitians are up here eating your pets doesn't mean that you should have a poor opinion of them. She says you're a racist if you don't want your neighbor eating your dog. And you may think I'm kidding, but I'm not. These Haitians, they're eating cats, dogs, and rats. In New York City yesterday, I saw roasting what appeared to be either very large rats or kitty cats. I couldn't quite tell what was on the spit, but they're doing it right on the street and selling the meat. In a recent Springfield City Hall meeting, people were begging for help. Some asked City Council to help the Haitians to even just learn to drive, for crying out loud, because one of them drove a car over an 11-year-old child and killed him. And they generally have frequent accidents because, well, they don't know how to drive, but they drive anyway. Springfield, Ohio has 60,000 residents 3 years ago. Now they have an additional 20,000 Haitians. These Haitians are uneducated, not civilized according to Western standards of civilization, and they're eating the cats. One little girl went to look for her cat, and she found it hanging up like a deer at a Haitian's house just down the street. But we're supposed to accept millions of uncivilized, unvetted people that the Democrats have brought in order to skew the election. Maxine Waters, of course, is not a nice person. We all know that. We've seen her call for riots. We've seen her call for people to attack conservatives and let them know that they're not welcome here. And she's still in Congress, by the way. She still has power over you. I think, at the very least, maybe what we should do is try to help the Haitians in Haiti instead of bringing them here. Anyway, thanks for listening. Take care of yourself. God willing, it's all going to work out.